Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Awoken Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Owsley, and first, I need to thank everybody for the massive show of support. Big jump in the account, so I appreciate that. And I don't know really how to respond to it. It's not something I'm used to, so thank you for that, and thank you for the likes and the subscribes and all of that. I will say that the video I did yesterday on the the new League of Their Own series was copyright knocked down, and so it went from like 900 views to like, I don't know, below 100. I don't really know how that happens. I'm new to all this, so if you're watching and you wonder why that dropped and why there's likes but there's not views, that's why, as far as I know. Again, I'm not very technologically savvy, to be honest, so Lord knows. But I was given a copyright notification on the trailers that I showed in that video, so that's why. But I digress. I will say this. I have to say this. If you like what I'm bringing you here, if you like what the content I'm putting out for you and the takes I'm giving you, please like, subscribe, share the videos, hit the bell so you can be notified when I am coming online. And if not, don't. That's perfectly fine too. But I would prefer that you do, and I think you would too. So this is not going to be very long cast tonight, but I wanted to make sure I checked in with everybody. So the first thing I want to say is that I found an instance of a woke teacher that I think needs to be highlighted. Needs to be highlighted because I'm often hit with well, this isn't happening in our schools. This isn't happening in red states. This isn't happening. It's really happening everywhere. And if you've been on Twitter, you've been around, you know that. But if not, that's why I'm here. I'm here to show you. So here we go. I have to give a shout out to my friend inside the classroom here. First of all, follow them on Twitter. That's at EITC_official inside the classroom. You need to follow them on Twitter because this is where the video came from. And they're doing lots of great work in highlighting exactly what I'm trying to highlight for you. So this is an interesting thing because this is in Utah. This is a middle school teacher in Utah. And well, this underscores exactly what the teachers in the colleges are being taught to do for your kids, especially the younger the grades, the more it is happening. Okay. The younger the grade, the more it is happening. I see more and more preschool, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade teachers coming in just full blown woke as fast as they can do it. And without any hesitancy as to what it is that they're saying might possibly be wrong. That is the depth of the indoctrination, the depth of the mind erosion that is going on in our universities. And I'm going to be highlighting that in a further series this coming week, and as I move forward about what it is that's causing this and why the universities are pushing this so in depthly. Right? It's systemic racism. It's planting systemic racism and systemic discrimination in the name of ending systemic racism and discrimination, which, if you think about it, follows Ibram Kendi's own model that the only way that you can end discrimination is to discriminate. Ooh, man. the level to which this has happened is, it just can't be understated. So before I get too blabbery here, let's just watch this video. Okay. Let me get and see if I can get this a little bit more visible for you. So again, follow Inside the Classroom. Do that on Twitter. It will be to your liking. Here we go.
So for the first time in my life, I'm going to be teaching at a majority white school. And I'm kind of interested to see how students and parents react to my classroom, or if they even notice anything about it, because it's built for non-white students.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is like if you look around and you interact with some of the materials I have, you'll notice that there's like no white kids represented.
Sound inclusive to you? Does it sound inclusive to you? I'm going to explain the word inclusion just a minute, but I'm going to back that up. We're going to start it one more time. I just want you to, first of all, you got the nice beating music, right? Right? And it's like, here, let me give you some joyous racist discrimination, right? It's like, isn't it, as long as it's wrapped in a nice, pretty bow, I can discriminate against you all day. And of course, as long as you're the right color, right? Then you're good. Just gonna start over. I just have to just notice the pleasantness, and then all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, this is what inclusion means. This is what inclusion is, over-representation.
So, for the first time in my life, I'm going to be teaching at a majority white school. And I'm kind of interested to see how students and parents react to my classroom, or if they even notice anything about it, because it's built for non-white students. And
Why would you build a classroom for a specific color of kids? Just think about that for a second. Why would you build a classroom for or against a specific race of children? It, it it's as if they are not capable to seeing how racist that is. I just don't understand. Where did we go wrong? Well, I actually do understand. But the level to which they don't see it in themselves is pathological. It is a mental condition. It's an induced mental condition, but it is a mental condition nonetheless. It is a it the wall between them and what they're saying is so programmed that they don't even realize what they're saying or how it might be interpreted to those who are listening.
what I mean by that is like if you look around and you interact with some of the materials I have, you'll notice that there's like no white kids represented in that. So just on like that very first level of multicultural education, and I don't think like my new students will mind, but not a single white face there.
So let's unpack this for just a second. She said this is the first time teaching in a mostly white school. So when she was teaching in a mostly black school or a mostly non-white school, see, she's labeling everything in terms of white and non-white. So these non-binary people really do love using their binaries, don't they? Just think about that. She's using a binary, but that means if she was teaching in a non-white majority classroom, when she was teaching in that school, she was not being inclusive by having any white faces represented, right? Because that's what she's the most basic form. That means when she was teaching that shows you the hypocrisy or the repressive tolerance of it all, right? Because as she was teaching in the mostly non-white schools, she was not being inclusive of white students or showing the majority of the students in that non-white school what white kids look like and representing them in the classroom. See, it's required of white people or people who don't hold really that politics to include to the point of excluding completely people who are historical oppressors, right? That's completely okay. They can remove them completely, and that is actually in line with their ideology. That's equity. That's what I mentioned yesterday on my podcast about A League of Their Grown. A League of Their Grown. Is that equity is not actually just a representation based upon whatever the population is, right? Equity is over representation. And remember that the definition of inclusion is the critical legal theory and the what is actually the Supreme Court definition of inclusion, which means that to include something is to necessarily and implicitly exclude another. That's the definition of inclusion, and you can see it perfectly outlined in the way that she discusses this in her video, that white students are not represented, and that is the ultimate of equity. That is the mechanism of inclusion to its full tilt. In just the surface level.
Same with my coloring pages. I have a big stack of coloring pages that students can use, and not a single one with a person on it depicts a white person or character. Because I just kept looking for pages for them that they'd relate to.
Okay, so, but if they're coloring pages, here's the interesting part. If they're coloring pages, that means they're black and white already. So couldn't the child make make the pages whatever color they wanted them to be?
And then the only Disney princesses I have are Mulan and Moana, because they're some of my favorites, and coincidentally they are not white. Then another thing is my classroom library. Of course, literature is kind of dominated by straight, cis, white men, so there is a good deal of that in my books, but it is overpowered now from all the books that I've been purchasing to add on to my library that depict a lot of diverse peoples, whether that's people of color, or I have like books on non-binary, trans.
See, this is the thing. Diverse to them means everybody but the white people. It means everybody but white people. So they don't include whom they see as white, which is, this girl's obviously white, okay? But they don't include those people or whom they deem white. Because here's the other thing. What they don't tell you is that even black people, if they hold the wrong views, are deemed the blackface white supremacy, right? So she's saying that diversity means the exclusion of anyone that she doesn't agree with and anyone that she seems as white, except for herself, though, right? Except for herself. She's the one that's allowed.
The books that I've been purchasing to add on to my library that depict a lot of diverse peoples, whether that's people of color, or I have like books on non-binary, trans, otherwise LGBTQ characters. So there's just not a lot of adherence to the status quo on just that like base level of my classroom. So I'm kind of wondering if I feel like some parents might have something to say about that. If my experience with posh white parents in the past holds true for this year, we'll see.
Okay. So I'm sorry I interrupted it all. So I'm going to play it one more time, just all the way through so everybody can see it. And then we'll talk about it again. So you can get the full scope of her self-hatred, her ideological hatred, and the steps that she goes mentally to get there. And none of that without seeing that this is racism in practice. And she's tithing her own self-hatred. She's tithing hatred for white children or white posh parents, or basically what she's going for is more conservative parents. And more conservative meaning anybody, right of Mao. Anybody right of Mao basically is too conservative for her. But she's completely okay with just removing anybody she deems as non-diverse. You see the exclusion? So I'm just going to play the whole thing one time through so you can see it.
So for the first time in my life, I'm going to be teaching at a majority white school. And I'm kind of interested to see how students and parents react to my classroom, or if they even notice anything about it, because it's built for non-white students. And what I mean by that is, like, if you look around and you interact with some of the materials I have, you'll notice that there's like no white kids represented in that. So just on like that very first level of multicultural education, and I don't think like my new students will mind, but not a single white face there. Same with my coloring pages. I have a big stack of coloring pages that students can use, and not a single one with a person on it depicts a white person or character. Because I just kept looking for pages for them that they'd relate to. And then the only Disney princesses I have are Mulan and Moana, because they're some of my favorites. And coincidentally, they are not white. Then another thing is my classroom library. Of course, literature is kind of dominated by straight, cis, white men. So there is a good deal of that in my
racism
in my books.
Yeah.
But it is overpowered now from all the books that I've been purchasing to add on to my library that depict a lot of diverse peoples, whether that's people of color, or I have like books on non-binary, trans, otherwise LGBTQ characters. So there's just not a lot of adherence to the status quo on just that like base level of my classroom. So I'm kind of wondering if I feel like some parents might have something to say about that.
Victimhood. Let me prepare.
If my experience with posh white parents in the past holds true for this year, we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, doesn't it seem as though she's bragging? She's like, I know I'm white. Guys, I know I'm white, but look how unwhite I'm being. As if it, again, and the stretch of this into the non-binary and the trans issue and all of that shows you that this really isn't actually about identity. It's about politics. And the goal here is to erase all identity classes. She's tithing her own identity to the political ideology. She then imparts the political ideology. That becomes her identity. And that's why when you disagree with her about her politics, she sees that as an attack on her identity, not just the identity of her BIPOC or LGBTQIS 38297, students, but she will see that as an attack on her identity, because her identity is being wiped. The ideology has wiped her individuality and replaced it with this non-binary, which is, okay, I'm not this or I'm not that, which means you're blank, right? And her herself being white, she's now demonizing what it is. She's putting primacy on color, and then when she puts primacy on color, she demeans herself as being the sub-color, right? So that's the self-racism. It's a self-emulation. She's beating herself up, and she's tithing that all, and she's giving that away and saying, hey, everybody, look, even though I am this identity, even if I do like men, I'm non-binary. Even if she's tithing her identity to the ideology. And in doing so, she wipes herself clean of her own identity and takes on the political ideology as her identity, which makes her be able to claim the victimhood of the students that she is trying to literally force this on now. Right? She did all the practicing she needed to in her non-majority white school. Now she's taking it to the white school, and she's going to impose this upon the students so that they can practice her self-immolation. her self whipping of herself. And then she gets on TikTok and she goes, "Hey, everybody, sorry for my immutable qualities, but because of my immutable qualities, because I have these problems with who I am in an outward appearance, I'm going to discriminate against those who look like me in order to buy this redemption, this social redemption. And hey, everybody, look how great I am at it." The level of really self-harm and self-abuse this is going to do to her over time, it it can't be measured now for sure, but it will be measured over time. You're going to see there's a reason. If there have been trans and non-binary and gay to the level that they say that there have been, gay and lesbian, but really the trans and the non-binary and the queer over the course of time, why was suicide so much less prevalent 30 years ago than it is now? If the reason why suicides were happening back then were because they were trans and couldn't tell anyone, why are they so much higher now? I contend, and I think there's going to be data to support this. I think there is already data to support this, right? That it's because they've given up who they are as people.
So
And they're tithing this identity. They're tithing their own, who they are in themselves, to the ideology. And they're sacrificing that. And then how they keep their salvation, so to speak, is they promise to proselytize. Right? They go into all the world and they preach that gospel. Right? Here's the interesting part of this, is that the school, this is what was it? William Penn Elementary in Utah. They took down their Twitter site after this was posted. It's going to go underground. That's the last thing I want to say about this, is that this is the very outward facing thing you're going to notice. And well, hey, I want to say hi to some people. Joshua Clark, thanks for being here, man. Yes, in the words of Jordan Peterson, DEI must die, because that's literally what implanted this, right? And we've got Odie the Boston Terrier. What's up, man? How you doing? Showing you. Okay, watching from Broken Arrow. Thank you, Odie. Appreciate that. And Conservative Z. It's really it's really crack-headed. Yeah, it is crack-headed. Okay, it is crack-headed, but it's also, what we must understand is that this was induced by people before her. Her job is to continue the message. You know, her job is to continue the message. And she's taking this into her now majority white school, and she's going to abuse kids with it. This is nothing less than mental abuse. This is nothing less than psychological abuse. That's why I do what I'm doing. Okay, I've seen this. I've watched kids go through this process in college, as working in a college, and watch them come in as bright freshmen and really excited, and then all of a sudden you see this transformation in them that grabs a hold of them, and slowly they become more upset with the world. They become less healthy looking. You can see their transformation into this look, into this mindset. And it comes with a look. It does. It comes with an erasure. I appear female, but I intend to look male because they cancel each other out. So therefore, I'm a blank slate for the ideology. This is psychological abuse. And this young lady suffered under it and now is taking that PTSD and righteously passing it down to her kids in 4th grade at William Penn Elementary in Utah. This whole ideology was implanted in the name of ending systemic discrimination and has injected overt systemic discrimination as the antidote. It's like, it's like eating rat poison and then taking a cyanide pill. It's like as the cure. It doesn't make any sense. When Ibram Kendi says the only way to end racist discrimination is with anti-racist discrimination, anti just meaning literally anti, like antimatter. When you have matter and antimatter, matter goes one direction, antimatter goes the other. It's the same matter. It's just the direction it's going. That's scientific science, right? Matter and antimatter. It's made up of the same properties, just going a different direction. Racism, anti-racism, think of it that way. Because that's how he means it. And that's why he's okay with discrimination. Because discrimination is just bigotry in action. Right? Treating someone else different because of the color of their skin or for any reason along those lines, that is, and doing that through a system like your classroom. Your classroom is an ecosystem. That's the way they look. That's why they use the ecological model. And I'll talk more about this in some future episodes, but they use the ecological model that shows that their spheres of influence. And their sphere of influence, the first one is them and who's directly in their pathway. And then there's outside of that, right outside their room, right, the teachers and the things that they interact with. And then the next one, and then the next one is the policies of the organization for which they work. And within her direct sphere of influence, in her sphere of control is what they call it, are her students. And it's her materials. So when she's talking about, I don't have any again, I just have to highlight the hypocrisy. When she was teaching at an all-black school, which is the way I assume was talking about, or all non-white school, she did not feel the need to have white people represented there. And that was perfectly aligned for her in her ideology. So she was mirroring back to the same kids, not diverse voices. Diversity just means, to her, it means all a different color, all not straight, all not. Everybody must be something other than what has been, in her mind, the dominant voice. So they're not included in the diversity. That's what DEI officers do in the hiring process. First, they check the box of, okay, can we find a person of color that can do this? Can we find, better yet, can we find a person of color who's non-binary, a person of color who's trans, or a person of color who's check another box? And they're willing to accept, the only time they're willing to accept a person who's white, like this young lady is, who doesn't check a number of those boxes, if they're this strong against pushing the ideology that will ensure that this keeps going. That's the cudgel. That's the harm. That's the racism in it. That's the bigotry. So although this is outrageous, and it is, what's outrageous is that she doesn't understand what it is she's saying. She doesn't get that what she's saying is racism. What she's saying is replete with bigotry. That's the breakdown in logical, rational, linear thinking that this ideology imposes. And we've got to do something about it. We have to do something about it because in the system that, again, we're now being forced to go and use a little bit of their language, but they've implanted a system, a racist system where one didn't really exist before. They've made discrimination based upon immutable qualities plus your political beliefs completely okay. Because the only redemption that a historically oppressive person who belongs to a historically oppressive group can have is to completely take on as their identity this ideology. That's the only redemption they have. That's the only thing that can buy them. And it doesn't see the reason why DEI officers say that the work never ends, right, is because there's always another tithe. There's always another penance to be paid. There's no salvation. There's only more work. And they know that at any given point, they themselves can be sacrificed on the altar as example. So we got to stop this because I actually, my heart goes out to this young lady. I have compassion for her because she doesn't understand, or I think the people in this age group that they think they're being morally virtuous and they don't see the hypocrisy. It's the cognitive dissonance wall is so strong because they've been taught what to think and not how to think. It's a new religion. That's the zealotry behind it. And that's the way that they believe it. And it's built upon self-hatred. So I think the one thing that we have to do is have compassion for that. But we also have to understand and not accept that this isn't a problem. We have to assert that this is the problem. And we have to name that. But we don't have to point it just at the teacher. This is the thing. I don't want to hold this teacher responsible. I want to hold the DEI apparatus and the schools that brought this into their and the professors way higher up that embedded this in, because this will keep happening if we don't look up. We're being smacked with a Marxist dialectic, and it makes your head spin. So I know that's a bit of a depressing way to end this, but I don't want there to be a raw. We have to go after this teacher. She's already, I'm sure, paid the price for this, but or at least I hope a well-meaning administrator who knows said, I need you to understand something here, that what you're doing is not what you think it is. It's actually the opposite of that. I don't know that I'd bet on it right now, but the administrators and the professors and the DEI offices and the cudgel, the women's studies professors and all of this that just implanted that in order, if you are white, if you are belong to these groups, you have to lay who you are down. You have to sacrifice it and take up this political ideology to be good again. That's where we need to focus this, and on the money that's supporting it. And I'm going to be talking a lot more about that very soon. Stick with my channel this week. Stick with it. Like, subscribe, hit the bell to help support what I'm giving you, because I've got some really in-depth, important stuff coming about how this is implanted in K through 12 schools via the universities, via these NGOs that nobody's ever talked about. Nobody. So keep supporting what I'm doing. Keep watching. Like, subscribe. And I appreciate your work, or if you appreciate my work. And I appreciate you watching. And I will see you guys soon. All right? Thank you, guys. Bye.